Everyone, welcome to the New Media Show. We are back. It's been like 2 weeks since we did a show, Rob.
I know we've been both traveling and getting out in the space. This is kind of the continuation of the podcast conference season.
Yeah, well, I was doing business. You were doing conferences, so
right.
I think I would have rather been doing conferences.
Really?
They're more.
Wow.
They're more fun. You know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you're out there meeting new people and stuff like that. Where if you're in the business, it's like hardcore.
Yeah, you're down and grinding. So
down in the weeds. Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking with. I got back here and was talking with my team, and I'm like, even though I was still working while I was gone, it still feels like you're behind. And matter of fact, I'm still behind on a couple of things, and I'll get those knocked out this weekend. But that's life. But anyway, everyone, welcome back. We're glad to be back. And the podcasting space has survived without us. So
it's amazing how that works.
Yes, it has. Yes, it is. So, but a lot of stuff going on. Lots. I'm sure we've got 3 hours worth of content to push into 90 minutes. But
yeah.
So tell me, I guess first, Rob, tell us about you went to Dragon Con. How was it?
Camp back in Atlanta. I guess it's like a 30-year running event back there in Atlanta that occupies about 6 hotels right in downtown Atlanta. And I guess this year they had about 90,000 people at this event. And it's a little bit like Comic-Con, but the difference is versus Comic-Con, which I don't believe has necessarily a podcasting track. I think they have some live podcasts and things like that go on at Comic-Con. But this event actually had a podcast and new media track that's been going on for a few years now. It's run by a fellow by the name of Charles McFall, who's a podcaster, and he has it's a pretty significant track. He's got 2 big conference rooms, and he packs them in with people from the kind of cosplay. These are 90,000 people that get dressed up in all sorts of character costumes from movies, TV, video games, and pop culture. And it's basically, to be real honest about it, it's just a big reason to party. Everybody there's panel sessions, and then there's live podcasts, and there's live things going on, movie screenings, TV show screenings, a lot like what Comic-Con does. But at the end of the day, it's just a reason. It's like a gigantic Halloween party, right?
So how were their sessions attended? What was the head counts?
Yeah, I think we had actually I did 3 panels at the event, and I think each of the sessions we probably had at least 100 people in the room. So it was also live streamed on Facebook. So every single episode was live streamed, or every single panel. So it was, it was a terrific event. I had a great time there. There was a lot of great podcasters there. So I mean, it was really entertaining. It's not like Podcast Movement where it's really serious and stuff. I mean, a lot of the podcasting panels were really funny and edgy and kind of different. It's not like serious conversations about how to podcast and stuff. Though a couple of the sessions were like that, but a lot of them were more about kind of having fun. Like a couple of the nights after 10 o'clock. The panelists can drink, and so can the audience, and they can share a beverage.
It's after 10 p.m. you said? Or,
yeah.
Or 10 a.m.
No, 10 p.m. And then you can also use 4-letter words after 10 p.m., but you can't prior to 10 p.m.
That's funny.
Yeah. So it's trying to cater to young people during the day. So if families want to go to this event, they don't have to worry about going to sessions that are a little spicy. Is a nice way to say it. But it's definitely something that's a little different from the podcasting space. I think it's probably more similar to what we would see at like PodCon. So I think it's kind of in that same vein.
Well, that's cool. And speaking of which, everything's ramping up for PodCon. Some announcements been around that.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then you guys were at TechCrunch Disrupt, that definitely wasn't a podcasting event, but tell me about that.
Well, that was a really interesting event. We were the only podcasting company there.
Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. I know you guys it was expensive, wasn't it?
No. Actually, it wasn't very expensive.
Oh.
Because we did a media deal with them. So we ran a bunch of ads on our ad network for them in exchange for a sponsorship. So it was like a media, it was really a media sponsorship is what it was.
Yeah, a little bartering going on. Cool.
Right. And so I got a table down there and was constantly surrounded by, hundreds of new startups in the tech sector. And, it's just, there's a lot of energy there, a lot of new companies that are looking to possibly do marketing initiatives, and podcasting is certainly one of them. It was really an interesting mix of people that came by my booth. A lot of software application developers wanting to tap into our APIs and SDKs and stuff to maybe add podcasts to other types of communication apps or community building apps, or apps that were kind of like trying to change the world around a particular mission, or like environmental movements or things like that, to be able to integrate content into their apps. So I know you talk to people as well, Todd. I know about probably some of these things as well, where they're wanting to take podcasts and add it to other content experiences in apps. And I think we may see that happen a little bit more here. I know I talked to at least probably 5 or 6 new startup apps that were looking to add podcasts, and basically just to play them, right? Not to create them or anything like that, but just to have the content available in those apps.
Well, one thing's for sure is that there's a demand for content, but no one wants to pay for any of it. It's just, so these folks all want this content for free to go into their business experience that they're making money. So, I think podcasters are going to have to be careful.
Well, Todd, I don't know about the making money part with some of these startups. You know how startups are.
Well, they're making money through their venture capital, so they've got income, so they can afford to, pay for content instead of, just, you know what I mean. So
I do. I'm not sure that if you look at the broader podcasting space, that everybody thinks like that, though, right? Paying for being in an app, is it just another distribution opportunity, or is it a way that app can get content that's maybe hosted on one of our platforms, right? That have a paying customer, can reach more listeners, right?
Well, there's definitely two ways to look at it too,
right?
If they feel your content is a valuable commodity and they want to have it embedded in their whatever they're doing to supplement, then it seems like there would be an opportunity there for podcasts, because it'd be a niche audience anyway.
Right.
So should be very valuable. So should, there should be some way to monetize. But I think we have to watch. Syndication is good, but when it comes to, I've had companies come to me and say, well, we want 10 of your top science shows. And I'm like, well, they're really not mine.
Yeah, exactly. And how were they, Todd, wanting to get access to those podcasts or those shows? I mean, what was the methodology? Just add it to their website or something?
Generally was RSS,
Okay.
Yeah. So, of course, then, when you're getting to the app space, people want to pull that data a little differently, but it's still one of those things I think we'll see more of. I think you're right.
Mm-hmm.
But how many of the people that were there were looking to actually do podcasts that were at TechCrunch?
Actually, quite a few. You would be surprised. I mean, a lot of startups are very concerned about marketing and getting the word out about their podcasts or about their product or their app.
Sure.
and creating a podcast to build community around that app is something that they were very interested in. And it's content marketing, right?
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of companies now are really relying on now. And Todd, we don't talk about this as much as maybe we should, but how important content marketing is now to the success really of any business, whether it's online or not.
And well, you look at some of these apps, and all they have is a single landing page that they don't want people coming to their website. They want them to use the app.
Right.
And I don't know. I think I have niche apps that I use, like the weather app or a finance app. There's probably a dozen apps that I go to. If I look at the front page of my phone, and is that the right way to say that, or is it the front screen of my phone? I don't know what they're. Anyway, the front page of my phone,
either.
And
right, yeah.
It's got the apps I use on a regular basis. Then 5 pages in are those ones that I use once in a while. So again, I'm. I don't know. There's the app developers are really, really fighting for usage time. And if you look at your usage percentages in your apps, you're going to kind of know where you spend your time on your mobile device. So it's a big battle for them to get eyeball time on those apps.
It is. Well, it's a very competitive area now. I mean, just look at
5
what's
bajillion
apps. Just look what's happening to Google Podcasts app. It's not getting fast traction. I mean, even for a big company like Google, of course, I hear people saying that, well, I didn't even know Google had a podcast app.
Right.
So it's really a marketing issue for a company like Apple or for Google, and they have kind of a confusing situation too. They have the Google Play Music podcast experience, and then they have the Google Podcast experience. And I see podcasters out there, and you're probably seeing it too, that are confusing the two. They will call the Google Play podcast experience the Google Podcast experience. It's confusing, right?
And now I'm carrying 2 phones. The first thing I do is I whip it out and say, have you seen what Google has done? And, people look at me, So I'm spending more time showing. It's like the old days. It's like showing the subscribe button on iTunes before. Right. So I'm spending, that's the reason I bought an Android phone, was because I wanted to be able to show this off. And people see it and they get it immediately. Once they see it once, they go, wow.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. How could Google get the word out about this thing?
Well, they've got the most powerful marketing engine in the world. I think they could figure that out.
Why? Yeah. Well, it's also, why don't they, I guess, or is it just because it's too early in the game for them?
Yeah.
Do they not feel like what they have is ready to be widely pushed out there, or is there not a lot of financial incentive for them to do a big marketing campaign?
Yeah,
it's a interesting question.
It is. But again, most of the podcasters aren't even promoting Google Podcasts.
Yeah, right.
They're and I think the majority of them don't even know.
I agree with you. Because if you think about it, most podcasters are actually typically on iOS, right?
Yeah, they
can't see it, right?
Yeah,
they can't see it.
Yeah, it's just. I'm replying in Slack here. I think you're right. I think it's true. I think that is. I go to podcaster sites still, and I just shake my head in dismay.
Right.
It's an ongoing. I don't think we're ever. But here's the thing: those we're starting to see data. Well, we have been seeing data. Those that are promoting Android as a whole are doing much better market-wise than podcasts that don't.
Yeah.
And purely, and this is the crazy part, purely, we're just looking at what's on their website. We don't even listen to their shows. So you look at the website, see what they have for linkage outbound from, where they sending people. They send it to Spotify, or they send it to iTunes, or Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
But maybe that leads into, well, I guess everyone that's listening to this show knows to promote Google Podcasts. I guess if you don't have, I'm actually seeing in Facebook too, people asking, can you show me what it looks like? Can you show me what it looks like in Google? Because they can't see it with their iPhone, right?
Right, they can't.
So why don't, come on, podcasters, the Android tablets are pretty cheap. You can you don't have to spend $800 like you do for an iPad. You can pick one up for like $150.
Yeah, I have a 7-inch Nexus tablet myself. That's what I use because I don't have an Android phone yet, but I probably will at some point. So I don't know.
So what did you think about did you watch the YouTube video of how to hack Apple Podcasts?
I did not have time to watch that. I was working a booth for like 4 days straight. Actually, the TechCrunch Disrupt exhibit booth was brutal. That show started at 7:30 every morning. Believe it or not, 7:30 a.m. every morning for 3 days.
Until what time?
Till 5 p.m. every day.
Did you have help?
Our CEO Francesco was there, but that was it. And Francesco hates to work trade show booths, so he avoids it like the plague.
Right.
So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I was the one that was holding down the fort, which is my strength. I mean, I love working exhibition booths.
But 7:30.
I know, 7:30 every morning. Yeah.
I think I showed up at 9. Just put a little placard out. I'll be here at 9.
What the truth was is by the time anybody actually got there, right? So I got there at 7:30. I was ready to go. I had my touchscreen monitor, the whole works, so people could demo, but nobody would actually show up until like 30, right? I was like sitting there twiddling my thumbs for an hour.
Drinking coffee in your Danish or whatever you got for breakfast, right?
Yeah, right.
At Starbucks.
Right. So funny. It was a little bit of me time.
Well, that was a time you could catch up on your 500 emails that you were behind on.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I was playing. I was playing Catch-em-all. It was just like I would go into a meeting, be in a meeting for 3 hours, come out and say, well, okay, we're gonna break for lunch for an hour and a half. Would you like to come with us? And in the back of my head is like, yeah, I want to go to lunch, but I also know there's 200 emails waiting for me.
Right.
It's either do them at lunch or do them at business doesn't stop just because I'm on travel. Well, that was interesting. So let's talk just a little bit about the Apple Podcast thing. And there was something that was on the tip of my mind I wanted to go back and talk about. Oh man, I'm getting old. So essentially what someone did was one of these marketeers on Fiverr, that basically there's a dozen of them over there, and Fiverr's like, we will get you to the top of the U.S. podcasting ranks in Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, I've been getting those emails too.
Me too.
I have a deal for you, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so the person that did the video, according to his story, asked lots of questions about what the person was doing, and he did it as a try to get the skinny on what they were doing. And eventually it sums down to one simple picture. Have you ever seen a sweatshop operation where they've got 500 phones on?
Oh, I think I did see a picture of that. It was like this, almost like a bookshelf of iPhones.
Bookshelf of phones, right? Yep. And so they get a person that's sitting there hitting subscribe. And
it's so old school, man. That's so low tech.
It's so low tech. But when you pay someone $3 a day, to do that, literally, and that's their job in life is, of course, they're able to manipulate the system. Well, anyway, the vendor had done one for free to prove to him, and then he got kind of nasty after the guy wouldn't pay him no money. But according to a post in Podcast Movement, someone actually got threatened for not continuing one that they had paid. They said, we're going to write 1-star reviews on you in Apple Podcasts. Now, be honest with you, I don't think
it's a bit of like extortion or something.
Right.
Yeah.
but I don't think I've looked at a if I'm looking for a podcast, the last thing I look at is the reviews of the show. To me, I haven't looked at even this show's reviews in years. I don't even know if we have any.
You could tell we really care too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it just shows how easy. And he took what's the app? Oh, it was our friends the Castbox app.
Castbox.
And in Castbox, it tells you when you look at the list of shows, it tells you in Castbox how many subscribers they have. So if you look at like the top 10 in Apple Podcast and you look in Castbox, it's pretty much mirrored and who the top 10 is from subscriber numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because Castbox has a page where they duplicate, and we need to talk about this seriously, where they duplicate the top 10 or top 200 list of Apple. They just copy it. They don't do any of their own calculations. So show number 23, which was Johnny's Knitting Show, which shows 3 subscribers, is number 23 in the top 200. Yet the 22nd show on Castbox has 8,000 subscribers, and number 24 has 7,900 subscribers. Yet Johnny's Knitting Show and spot 23 on Castbox only had 4 or 2, but yet they were ranked number 23. So he went through, and man, someone got busted hard because it was a whole network, like 20 shows. Here's this show, this show, this show, this show, this show, this show. Amazingly have come into the top 200. One of them had come in the top 200 within like 3 days of launching. And it just showed, it was easy to see the abusers when you were doing this A/B comparison. It wouldn't stick out so much just on Apple Podcasts. But boy, when you look at the Castbox subscriber numbers, compared it to what is on Apple Podcasts, it was very, very evident. So we've known for a long, long time that the Apple Podcast rankings
doesn't mean anything.
Means nothing
really
at this point.
Yeah.
There are some shows that deserve to be up there, but it can be so easily manipulated.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the top show on the episode side, so when they rank the episodes, I think that is based on popularity of the episodes. I would assume so.
I'd assume so too.
Really, you couldn't have a ranking by episodes if it wasn't based on popularity. So yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, just from my perspective, and you would probably agree with me, I wouldn't even pay attention to the top 200 podcasts on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. And
the fevered pitch to being new and noteworthy is not as bad as it used to be, but I still see popping up in that. So, and it's kind of like he did a nice video. It was a little bit of clickbait on the title.
Right.
Other than that, he did a good job. So, Apple definitely has an issue. They're going to have to make some changes. But that brings me up to a topic that I've been thinking about writing an op-ed piece on. So we talked a couple of weeks ago when we were doing the show. We talked about Apple cracking down on titles and author tags.
Right.
So let me just have you think about this for a second. Now, because we've had a number of new shows submit and get rejected because of title and author issues.
I've even heard of ones getting rejected for too large of album art too.
Wow.
On the file size side.
So, the podcaster comes to us because they get this generic email from Apple, and the podcaster comes to us and saying, what the beep, 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 and you guys are beep, 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 and I'm going to go beep, 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 and you can beep, 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 right?
Yeah, right.
Because
a lot of beep, beep, beeps.
Because I'm not in it, because Apple rejected me. You guys are a piece of beep, 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 right? And right. People, we get slaughtered. And
people really react negatively to that, right?
And it's our fault. It's our fault.
Exactly. It was almost in synchronicity there, Todd. We both said it's our fault.
So,
something wrong with our feed, right?
Yeah. So, and of course they go on social, they go on Facebook, they it's next thing you know, you're responding to 5 posts because their brains have exploded.
Right.
And I understand they're new. They don't know why they've been rejected. It's us. We're the piece of beep, so.
The buck stops with us, Todd. The same with Spotify, right?
So you guys have got the idea here. And so we go and load their show, and it's like Johnny's Kitten Show shows how the kittens decided to have, how the cats decide to have 5 litters of. I'm just being stupid, but it's like this 182 or 500 or 1,000 character title of their show,
right?
Instead of Johnny's Knitting Show or The Knitting Show or Knitting Show.
There's been a lot of people that have been abusing those titles for years.
Well, the hammer is here.
Right.
No more. You're not getting in.
Well, and also Apple and I don't know that people talk about this very much, but you have to be careful what you put in your cover art too. Your album art. If you put URLs in your cover art, or if you put call to actions in your cover art, or Twitter, Twitter links, or your at whatever in your cover art, Apple will never feature your podcast.
So
we'll never get any promotion on Apple.
So because they're cracking down.
Why are they cracking down now, Todd? Do you have any idea?
I think they want a better curated experience.
Is that a reaction to increasing competition?
I don't know. We have to ask Apple. Or maybe they're just...
Interesting question.
It is. So, because... And I'm going to take my soapbox here a little bit to the app developers. And if you're an app developer listening, here's the situation now. You and your app and its title and author listings are no longer and have not been controlled by you. Apple is dictating because you use the Apple Podcast API instead of building your own.
Right.
Apple Podcast now is the gatekeeper.
Right.
Now think
what
about...
if they choose to take that down? What if they choose to say no more access to the APIs?
Well, that we know what happens then. Those apps die instantly on the vine. So here's the question. They're not the question.
But then there's Todd out there.
No, this is not about Todd. This is about...
I know.
This is about Apple having a much stronger influence in...
Right.
Editorial influence in the podcasting space.
So you saw that Apple took the Alex Jones app down here this past week?
Took the app down.
The app down. And Twitter completely banned
everything
of Alex Jones.
We know that.
Here this past week, too.
I think that's a pretty slippery slope to take the app down. But they can do what they want to do.
Well, Alex Jones has been ramping up his rhetoric,
So
though.
all right. It started with Alex Jones. Who's next? And I'm not, please.
I don't know that there is anybody next.
Okay.
Really?
Please just be careful. I'm not defending the content.
Right. No, I know you're not.
All right. I'm not defending the content in whatsoever. But censorship. When companies start having the ability to, and it's really not censorship, they just say they don't want them on their platform. So it's maybe not the same thing as censorship, but...
It violates their terms of service.
Right. So who's next? Now that's a hypothetical. Who's next?
I don't know. I don't know that there's that much of a next because, I don't know about you, Todd, but I've only taken down maybe 3 shows in close to 4 years. So I wouldn't say it's a tremendous trend going on.
But it is a start. So we'll see.
It is a start.
We'll see.
But looking at the content, that's in all these platforms.
There's
really not that there's really not that much stuff that violates the terms of service.
There's a lot of stuff that's on the edge. A lot.
Oh yeah, it's on the edge, but you got to be over the edge.
Well, okay, so if it's on the edge, someone gets upset and starts a national campaign against another podcast.
Right.
And next thing you know,
it could happen.
It could happen. So, again, so what's next for InfoWars? So they got their website, their app's gone. People can still subscribe to the podcast, I guess, but where is the next target their web hosting provider?
Yeah, it's CDNs and web hosts is his last. I mean, he better keep his fingers crossed that doesn't hit him too, because if those two hit him, he's done.
He's done.
Yeah,
but that in itself is another like, whoa.
And then he has radio on the radio side. I don't believe that radio's taking him off the air.
Yeah.
So I think that's more interesting in this conversation that doesn't get talked about, is the fact that Alex Jones is on like 100 radio stations around the country. There's nobody addressing that topic right now.
Well, here you go. It's maybe radio's more tolerant than digital.
Could very well be. It's also not in the spotlight as much anymore either, right?
But if you think about it, if radio is more tolerant than digital, and again,
what does that mean for us, right?
Right.
Yeah, right.
So again, I don't know if he does the same exact content on radio as he's done online. Is it mirrored content? I don't know.
I'm not sure about that. Actually, it's a good question.
I've never listened to any of his content, so.
Yeah.
So again, it is an interesting move, but I get real leery here when.
Yeah. We're in a if you look at what's happening politically, and we're in a state of flux right now. Things can go in a lot of different directions. Right now.
People that have lost their mind and people that haven't. So.
Right. The country's divided on very polarizing ends of the spectrum, and it's causing things to become more extreme.
So I don't want to get political at all on the show. No, we can go easy here.
I'm not. I'm just stating the 30,000 foot view of what's happening, and it's having an impact on podcasting. I think we're just a reflection of what the culture is feeling and doing. If you look at a lot of the political podcasts that are out there, they're taking those positions as well. So
what happens when Left of Center podcast gets taken down? What happens then? So.
Yeah. I mean, but the question always gets back to it, Todd. Are they violating terms of service? Well, are they doing hate speech? Are they promoting violence? Are they? Those are all the same factors that come into play here.
Well, we will see.
Right. Exactly.
Because at some point the shoe's going to be on the other foot. And again, I'm not defending the content.
It could be, but maybe not.
Maybe not.
Right.
Yeah. Well, one thing is for sure, it's a good lesson for everybody.
Yeah.
There really isn't. No one can determine what the line has been because no one's really stated what the exact content is that got him banned. They haven't said specifics. At this point in this show, at this time hack, this is what, and they won't. So, but if you're invoking, suggesting violence in your show, you're going to be in trouble.
Well, I guess thinking about it logically, if one of these platforms were to have done that, I guess Alex Jones could go in and just delete that section of whatever show that was, and just continue marching down the path, right?
Well,
and
I don't think
keep happening over and over and over again.
Yeah,
and we be faced with the situation reoccurring over and over again.
So time will tell,
right? Yeah.
But there was definitely a coordinated campaign to take him out, and it was very effective, and it worked. So who's next? That's the question. So it's going to be interesting to watch, to see who's next.
mean, if he keeps his CDN and his hosting and all this stuff going, then he's not really shut down.
No, but the question I'm asking is, who's the next target?
Well, think about it. Who could it be?
Well, that's someone's good. I absolutely guarantee you, Rob, there will be a new target shortly. You just watch. We'll see. Look what's been happening in the space. Yeah. It's whack-a-mole right now.
Whack-a-mole. Well, yeah, in a lot of areas, you're right.
Yeah. So anyway, but going back to the Apple author and title tags, be forewarned. They're slowly going through the catalog and notifying and delisting people, and I don't know how rapid, but they're definitely getting them on the incoming side.
Right. So, and if in fact Apple is cleaning up their catalog and trying to make it a better experience, if that's the goal, then I'm not against it. I think it's probably a role that they should play. But they've been pretty harsh about it, though. Actually removing shows and things like that.
Yeah.
That kind of crosses a little bit of a line too. So.
Well, that definitely that's the fastest way to get someone's attention is what they're doing.
Right. And maybe, because there's so much that has to be done, maybe Apple has to take a pretty hard line roll on this just so they can get the changes made in a timely fashion.
But there are still shows that are in top 200. Did you look at their listings and you go,
Right.
Yeah.
So I've noticed, Todd, that more and more big name networks of content are getting added to Spotify here lately.
Well, it's not surprising. They're the second coming of podcasting.
But it's also interesting that those networks weren't a part of Spotify in the earlier process of adding podcasts to Spotify. Why all of a sudden now?
Could it be they're doing pass-through?
Very likely, Todd.
So,
which is different than everybody else.
So you have the haves and the have-nots. You have the haves, which is the networks that you got a little bit of muscle, and they say, no, we're not going to be on the network with you caching. You want to have our content on the network, you have to do pass-through.
Right. That's what I've been hearing as well. I heard about this at Podcast Movement that was happening with a big radio-related network that just announced a deal with Spotify. They hadn't been on them before, and all of a sudden they're on there now. It looks like Turner Podcast Network, which Chris Smith works with them and hosts, has the platform that hosts a lot of the Turner podcasts, and does dynamic insertion. Right. So that's the part that these big networks are wanting to keep intact. CNN, the Cartoon Network, the Bleacher Report, those guys are all tapping into the potential of dynamic ad insertion technologies, and what Spotify was doing was breaking that. And they're making it a requirement in allowing that content to be on Spotify, is that you can't cache, because it breaks the monetization models.
Well, it'd be nice if they made that available for everybody.
Yes, so I think it's up to us, Todd, to put some pressure on them to get that done, because pass-through is the right choice for them.
It is, and plus, it puts the burden of the hosting load back on us. It makes financial sense,
Well, if you think about it, I mean, there's a history of big platforms like this coming on the scene, caching, and then over time going to pass-through.
Yeah.
Look at iHeartRadio is an example of that. They were caching for a very long time, and then they decided to go pass-through. They're all pass-through. Stitcher started out caching, and they've gone pass-through as well. So there is a pattern here of shows or networks like this, or podcast platforms, really in a lot of ways making a mistake. In how they architect or launch. Maybe it's a technology issue that they have, because Spotify is, up to this point, all the content that's on Spotify is hosted by Spotify. So it could have just been could be just an engineering issue or limitation, unless they have other plans.
Well, we will see what happens, but I'm encouraged that the fever has calmed down a little bit. I would say.
Around Spotify.
Yeah.
Well, I think the bulk of the shows are in there now. Right?
I think so.
Yeah.
It definitely has. Our ticket volume has dropped. I don't so much feel I'm being Spotify tech support at this point so much.
Right.
But it's still, if their stats go down for a day, people are, what are my stats?
Right.
And they have had some reliability issues on that side, but usually it resolves itself pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So time will tell on Spotify. But boy, there's some, people love that app. To be honest with you, I still don't get it. I have a very hard time finding shows in it. Unless I know the exact title of the show, it's almost impossible to find a show in Spotify.
Yeah. So I don't know, did we get a chance to talk at all about the leak, the patent leak about something, or there was some leak that came out about, and this was in the news about, I guess, Google having some new podcast app or something like that.
Oh, I heard something about that. They've got some Skunkworks app that they're working on. Yeah, I heard something about it. Yeah. But not too much.
Do they need three platforms here?
No, I don't think so. But I knew there was a couple of groups working on stuff. But
yeah, right. That's true.
So I don't think I'm surprised here.
It does kind of say that there is definitely a serious interest on the part of Google what's happening in this medium.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they've got all these different things going on, and maybe it's just research. They're throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But the news has been largely about content lately. It's
been that way for a while now.
Yeah. And I noticed the upfront happened in New York City.
Yep. IAB podcast upfronts. Yeah.
Yep. So there was, those folks that wrote those big checks to go up there and do that. I don't know how it was attended. I haven't heard the total attendance number.
Yeah.
Of that event. But that's, it's kind of a traditional radio thing and TV thing to do up front. So for podcasting, I just don't know how much bang for the buck they're getting out of those events. But
it's been a place where kind of big shows and big platforms and big networks kind of go to either announce their new shows for the upcoming season and try and get advertisers excited about them, and that's kind of the purpose. I guess Wondery announced a couple of new shows, one with Ellen DeGeneres, and I also noticed that iHeartRadio did a deal with a show also from the How Stuff Works folks. I guess it was the murder show that they have or something like that. So maybe they're doing a redistribution ad deal with them.
Well, I think what we're starting to see is some siloing. People are taking their content off one platform and having it on another. I don't know if that's a good strategy or not.
Well, it appears that there's kind of a growing development of these podcast networks that are forming, creating original high quality podcast content, doing distribution deals with some of these new, I should say, old line new podcasting platforms coming out of the radio side, like iHeartRadio, doing those kind of deals. Maybe, those guys are thinking, that, and I know this has been said a lot, that the podcasts are like the farm league for radio. That's kind of how radio is starting to look at podcasts, right? So there's talent and content coming out of this medium that's ahead of radio, right? And maybe those networks like Westwood One or even WNYC, which is a radio related thing too, taking on podcast content, making it available on the air, as well as podcasts. So I think we're seeing these worlds kind of blend together.
We've got a number of folks that are watching today. We've got Tim, Mike, Matt, another Mike, and Rick. At least those are the folks that have said hello in the chat room. There's more people viewing, so make sure you say hello if you are.
So, Todd, did you want to talk at all about the announcement this week? And I also had a representative from Twitter come by my booth down at TechCrunch Disrupt yesterday, and actually I talked to them a couple times when they were down there. They wanted to make sure that I knew that they were working on podcasting.
Well, here's the thing: they made this a live announcement, but I think you can only live through the app right now. I haven't figured out how you can do it like we do it. So,
but I got the impression from them that they were very interested in podcasting. And I'm not quite sure what the nexus is between podcasting and what they're doing with this live stuff, but they were pretty excited to make sure that they wanted to talk about the live stuff. And did you see our announcement today? But they mentioned podcasting along with that, which live is what they're doing right now isn't podcasting, but
no. They've taken the Periscope. They've taken the Periscope technology and rolled it into Twitter.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
And it's what
it's like what Facebook does, right?
Yeah, they baked that in. So, but the question, I was trying to figure it out. I don't know if I have to stream on Periscope or exactly what I have to do, and I've got some support questions out to New Tech to say, all right, does anybody figured this? You got this genie out of the bottle. How do I do just Twitter and not Periscope, or do I have to tie it to Periscope? And I don't know yet. I didn't even have a Periscope account until yesterday. So,
yeah, I had one for a long time, and then that whole live video thing kind of faded off a little bit.
So we'll see, and maybe next week if I get it figured out, maybe we'll be live streaming on Twitter as well.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, especially if you can pin it to your. I don't know. Do you have to? Probably in that instance, you almost have to pay for the promotion. I just don't know how you keep relevant. It's just like on Facebook we're persistent, and YouTube we're persistent on the page. I don't know how you stay. You have to keep a persistency. In other words, people have to know that you're live and can actually go to a URL if you're trying to direct them to one. That's to me. I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
You can get a direct link to a Twitter post.
I know
right in the UI.
I know, but it's when you go live, you haven't really published. You're just live. So again, there's some stuff to be figured out.
Yeah.
We'll see, and we'll see if it gets in. It just seems like it's like Me Too. Me Too. We've got live too.
Well, so I'm assuming, Todd, and I haven't heard anybody mention this yet about Twitter doing this, but there was a few months ago. Remember when we mentioned on the show that Leo Laporte was suing Twitter?
That's true.
For doing audio and video. On their platform, I guess they had an agreement.
That's right.
To not do that. I wonder whatever happened to that lawsuit. If they settled out of court, because nobody ever said anything afterwards. And I see Twitter continuing to march down the path of video and now audio, which is a direct connection to what Leo's brand, right?
Right.
Was really is focused on. So I guess they had a non-compete relationship between the two, and that's what that lawsuit was about.
That had been
I never heard about it being resolved.
That had been pretty narrow thinking on Twitter's part in the early days to sign a non-compete on audio and video, but
it's a trademark concession. That's what it was.
Interesting, because Leo owns a trademark on Twit, right?
Right.
Before Twitter.
Which I don't think that Twitter really uses that trademark Twit either.
Mm-hmm.
So, that may be how that, if it did go to court, the judge maybe threw it out.
Well, the judge is going to say, well, everyone knows what Twitter is. Who's Twit?
Right. Well, I'm sure Twit was probably, I think Leo had the Twit brand before Twitter existed, But the problem is I'm not, I don't see Twitter using the term twit.
No.
So,
people tweet,
but that's different. That's a different word.
Yeah.
So he may not have had a strong leg to stand on there. So that's probably why. But I thought it was really ironic that Twitter was getting into live audio, and we're talking about podcasting. I said, so some things come full circle, don't they?
Yep. So the third season, and I hate seasons in podcasting, for the record. Right. The third season of Serial is coming. Are you exciting? Are you excited?
Well, it's great for them. It's just another series, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to bust down any doors. As far as I know, it depends. I guess it depends on the content, right?
Yeah.
Does it engage people and get them excited?
Mm-hmm.
If it does, then maybe it does have an impact.
So what else is going on with you guys?
Well, I'm just surviving some conferences, and then this next week, just kind of getting back to work and trying to plan forward, right? Trying to get set up with, because my role at the company is changing a little bit, so I'm getting more involved as kind of just really focused on helping podcasters. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be creating a lot more content, and because we're hiring a new guy in the company to come in to handle strategic partnerships. Oh. So I don't have to split my time between doing deals and advertising relationships and all this kind of stuff. Right. I can really focus on, building awareness for the company and the brand and helping podcasters. So, which is what I love to do. So
damn it, I keep thinking about something. It must not be important, right? If it's drifting.
If it's just something that
it keeps pinging me in the back of my head. So the IB stuff, I think we have, as of yesterday.
Oh, the certification.
Yeah, process, I think we have everything into them. I think we have 3 questions remaining to be answered. It's pretty deep, to be honest with you. And
did you guys have to go back in and do any tweaks to the code?
Not yet.
After their feedback?
Yeah, not yet. So, but what I'm anticipating is that, because we measure two ways, log file and redirect. And there are certain things we don't get in the redirect. So we have some questions out to IB in regards to the spec. So it's going to be interesting to see because what happens is in a redirect is you get the byte range, but you don't get a guarantee that the file was delivered in a redirect. You still get in many instances, you get a 201 or whatever that, you get that response back saying that it was delivered, but you don't see sometimes the chunks of data that have went down, and you can't tell
how much. So you're talking about a redirect off of a media file URL, like a prefix.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and when you're doing the straight host log files, that's not an issue. It's that all that data is in there, but it's not in a redirect. But we've been doing some A/B comparison, where we look at purely redirect totals, and we look at the same show with the log data, and it's interesting. And I'm not willing to go into any discussion points at that, but I will say this: there probably will have to be, if people want IB certified. And again, we don't know what the IB is going to require of this, because we got questions out to them, but we potentially could have some additional requirements for people that are using the redirect to agree with in order to get certified stats. I think we're going to get there, but there may be some information that we'll provide in addition to the total download numbers. So an offset type of percentage may be something to that effect.
Well, this is an important topic for you guys, because you guys put out prefix redirects for your stats system, right? So,
and again, we measure both ways. We measure by raw log files and by redirects. So, it's definitely an interesting look and something we knew that was going to come up. But again, we're waiting for some IAB feedback, and it's been a good exercise.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah,
because there is going to be some technical differences between redirect traffic and direct
absolutely
traffic. I would think on the flow of data, right?
Absolutely, and it's largely because we don't get that. We get the byte range of how much is being delivered in the 201, but the ones that don't finish, we don't get that intermediary data that is that partial information that is still very valuable. So as an example, let's say 90% of the shows when through a redirect are delivering completely, but let's say 10% only partially download. That data's in limbo land. You don't know how much of that didn't deliver, or what the percentage delivered. So, but yeah, it is an interesting a look at things for sure. So we'll see what happens, and we're going to comply. We're going to do whatever they say, and we'll see what ends up being, if there has to be any. I don't think there's going to have to be any changes, but maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of.
Yeah, I don't think that many other platforms do what you guys are doing.
Well, PodTrack does. They do a redirect.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Those guys and you guys and our Dynamo product, which is redirecting for dynamic ad insertion, but that's different than what you're doing.
Yeah, so it's redirecting is okay if you're hosting the media. You still got the log data.
Right, and as long as that log data is being reported back to the host platform, right, and it's consistent on the IAB certification, everything should line up.
Everything should line up. Yep.
Right.
So, but anyway, that's just a process, and it's and we're one of the. I don't know. There's a couple of I think going through at the same time. So, but it's still, something like they're thorough. And I would say my dev team has spent a significant amount of time responding, and they're in the process now of doing the analyzation of the log data. So they've got all the log data from the testing they did against us, and then they're going to come back and look at what they came up with, and then we'll do some A/B comparison there, where they'll look at our numbers after they've calculated what they think it should be. So. It's got to that point.
Yeah, have you heard any updated numbers of the amount of podcast hosting platforms that are now on the IAB certification kind of to-do list? Of companies. I know we're on it now. It's just a matter of getting it going.
Yeah, so that would be 4 that I know of at least. I knew there was three before.
Yeah, I think I heard from I think it was Jennifer, I guess, from IAB, just at Podcast Movement, that she had like 6 or 7 companies on the list.
Well, that's good.
That had expressed interest. I don't know how far they are down the
expressing interest and writing the check are two different things.
Right. Send me the information. No. Yeah.
How much?
Yeah, exactly. So there's just a barrage, Todd. I don't know if you're getting pitched to participate and to sponsor podcasting events all over the country. I mean,
I had 5.
It's coming at me like crazy right now.
I responded to 5 this week.
Yeah, I'm backlogged right now in trying to assess.
And the Podcast Movement sponsorship stuff came through already too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I have a feeling, Todd, I think what happened there, and Dan will have to confirm on this, but I think the big radio companies, I think the big companies in the space are wanting to buy in early.
Well, I know that the top spot was already bought. When we got the pitch deck, the top number 1 sponsor spot was gone.
Right. So I think that there's heated competition to get to those sponsor spots.
It's funny, huh?
Yeah. I really think that's happening based on some of the conversations that I had at Podcast Movement with people. I think a lot of people felt that they missed, brand opportunities at Podcast Movement. So, yeah. anyway, it's interesting. And then lots of women's festival. There's one going on, the Women in Podcasting Festival in Chicago, coming up October 6th.
Yeah, there's something in Columbus going on too.
And there's
Women in Digital.
The Work It conference is another one that's happening. Actually,
I didn't get pitched on that one.
I heard about it from the female side of our company that they're going to go to it, but I said, so am I invited?
No.
Okay, I feel excluded now, but that's okay.
Yeah,
they can have their own event. It's okay. And then September 29th is the 4th annual SMG Podcast Marathon.
See, I didn't hear about that one either.
That's in Chicago.
On what day?
That's September 29th.
So are they trying to preempt International Podcast Day in the 30th?
Well, this is like a festival.
Oh, okay.
So it's a bunch of live stuff. It's the same, these live stuff is a big phenomenon. There's a lot of events starting to add live.
Yeah.
Live,
It's easy to do. It's not complicated anymore.
No. Well, it's never been complicated. There is
a certain investment you have to make.
Yeah, it's just investing in it, right?
Yeah.
And I did notice, speaking of PodCon, that John and Hank Green, who are the organizers of PodCon, announced a podcasting deal with WNYC Studios. So I thought that was interesting. Those are both YouTubers.
I just wonder what the what that means for PodCon.
I don't think it means anything for PodCon.
Really?
I would doubt it. I mean, unless that means that WNYC is getting involved in PodCon in a big way. Which is probably pretty likely.
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming.
Right.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. When the email came in from Dan, I was like, look at my watch. I'm like, it's a little early. I just finished paying the bill last month from the event, and you're sending me the sponsored ticket for next year. And I'm thinking to myself, I called a couple of the board members. I have to pull the trigger on this right now. I said, can't wait an hour.
Yeah, right. And I think also the whole aspect. I think they're picking this up because they're working a little closer with NAB now, and we both know what NAB is doing.
Yeah. Matter of fact, when is my NAB bill due?
Yeah. Well, and the NAB New York is coming up here too.
Yeah, we're not going to that, are you?
There's a good chance that we will be.
No.
I know that Rob's going to be there from Lips. So I've seen where his booth is already on the map. So
for New York?
Yeah. So
he's been going to that for a few years, so he should have decent positioning.
Right, but they don't really do that much content as far as like panels and stuff around podcasting at that event. So
isn't the radio show the better? Don't you think the NAB radio show is the better one to go to?
That's down in Orlando.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think they have some panels going on down there. Well, I mean, of course, the Rain Summit's down there too.
Yeah, I might. I think I've got that in the planning to go next year, not this year.
Oh,
so
to what the
radio show? Yeah,
radio show. I've been to that event before.
It's
I went
smaller.
to well, they tend to hold the Rain Summits at the same place as they hold the radio show.
But I'm looking at this from a budget perspective, and I know most of you don't care about this, but oh my God.
Adds up, all these things.
Travel, hotel, yeah.
Plus, Todd, there's a new podcasting event that's happening in Vancouver, British Columbia that I'm getting involved in too.
See, those groups need to start reaching out. They're missing out.
I had to reach out to them.
Oh, that's amazing. So they weren't even looking for money.
Well, this is a first year event. They don't have connections in the community, so but they're working on it.
How do you hold a podcasting event and not have connections in the community?
Well, they're slowly developing those. and I'm helping them a little bit. So that's typically how it happens. I mean, this is a regular thing. I know there's a couple other events happening. There's one happening in LA, and there's one happening at Harvard.
Right.
On the East Coast.
I'm aware of that one. Yeah, I'm aware of that one, and probably writing a check.
The Outlier Network folks.
Yep.
Yeah. And I was invited to speak at the New Media Summit. With Steve Osher.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go to that. I guess that's happening this coming next week.
It's a lot to do.
There's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah,
and you just don't know how you can cover it all. It's just
right.
There's too much. Costs too much.
And there's new events going on in Europe and down in Australia. Even in South America now, I know that there's events down there. The problem is that a lot of those events are in local language. So, and I don't speak a lot of those other languages.
So do you want to take a gamble? Who do you think, let's just go back to Podcast Moving again. Who do you think the headliner sponsor is going to be again? Who do you think?
I think it's going to be somebody completely different.
I think so too.
Yeah. And it's going to be a big company.
Well, the question is, if Dan and them gave the prior vendors an opportunity to get the spot before the new vendors, I don't know.
I think I
don't know.
After seeing, what happened at Podcast Movement this year, I wouldn't be surprised.
So do you think it's iHeart or?
There's a good chance. There's a good chance, yeah.
It's kind of funny though. They're not even completely inclusive to the entire podcasting space.
Well, but they're making original programming.
Yeah,
they've got lots of I'd say they're probably the biggest podcast content creator.
From a content side, but you still have got 60,000 podcasters, 80,000 podcasters that can't get on their platform. So,
Well, yeah.
So that, they're not very inclusive when you can't, it's very hard to get in there. So.
Right. Well, and about 600 or so of their radio station podcasts are hosted on Spreaker.
Yeah. So here's the thing is, why would, my whole iHeart thing is, why would it just blows my mind. Radio stations are so stupid. Why would they ever promote iHeart? Why? I still don't get it. I don't know why radio executives are that lazy. They're sending their audience off to the Netherlands.
Well, because they're owned by iHeart.
Well, okay. So again, if I'm a radio station owner, owned by iHeart, but all right, well, I guess that's their strategy, but
it's better than being owned by Clear Channel.
Well, let's just put it this way. It's just dumb. I still think it's dumb to send people to iHeart as a local radio station. No one's going to go listen to your content on iHeart.
Well, I guess it's the same dilemma that NPR went through a couple of years ago, right? It's like they don't mention the podcast that much on the radio anymore.
Well, they have, but at least they have
different audiences.
But at least they have their podcast app.
Right.
At least they have their own podcast app.
But that the other part that people don't talk a lot about also is that people that listen to the radio are typically a different demographic group than listen to podcasts. Age group, all that stuff is a little different. Though maybe it's blending together as they take podcast content, put it over on radio. Maybe they can drive.
Well, I know my kids are
age less.
I don't know. I know my kids aren't listening to the radio. It's very evident when I get in my car.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of them aren't even watching broadcast television.
No. My daughter doesn't have a TV in her room. She uses her iPad.
Yeah. Cutting the cord.
Yep. So, well, interesting times. For sure.
Yes, I see a lot of jobs popping up too.
That's true.
I look at the podnews.net. It's actually a great kind of glimpse of what's happening in the space, though it's not complete. There's a lot more going on than what's in Pod News. but there's a bunch of jobs in there. If you want to work behind the scenes, as a marketing person or as a storytelling person or a producer, there's jobs popping up all over the country.
Yeah, I think I don't know if our listing went up on Munster, but we've got a new, if it didn't go out on Friday, it'll go out on Monday. We've got a new job that's developer assistant. So
and we just hired like 3 or 4 people ourselves just in the last couple
But you
weeks.
mostly hire overseas, right? Those aren't folks here in the States, right?
Right. I mean, a lot of them do tend to be hired over there because a lot of our team is over in Europe, and so you're dealing with these time zone issues that can cause some issues.
Yep.
So, I'm the furthest one from the team.
Well, that's it shows that the space is healthy and growing. But don't you know, Rob, that the cost of doing business in the podcasting space is you can host this media for free.
Because, that's right. There's no cost to this medium at all.
There's no cost.
That's right. So, yeah, there's no justification for actually building a business.
Yeah, there's none whatsoever. We wrote a blog post, and it basically is entitled "Podcast Hosting Options and Your Content." So, I put a little piece out, a little thought piece for people to think about.
Well, Todd, and you dropped your stats. I saw. Was it in an article, or you dropped it around pod fading? I thought that.
It was about pod fading. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was what we had announced at Podcast Movement during our session. I basically laid out.
Right. Yeah, but you gave some more details this time.
Yeah.
Didn't you? Did you give it Podcast Movement?
I don't think so. I think it's the same info.
It's the same. Okay.
Yeah. But should make people go a little bit.
We were a little bit concerned about that data, right? And what it means.
Yeah. So if you look at let me actually look today. What are we up to? Because I know Angela was telling me expect a big bump in the program listings because his crawler was a little bit broke. And let me look here, see if I can see what we're up.
Oh, an update in the total number count?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, 558 is what we're up to. 558,000.
So are you able to see a trend line of month over month over the last couple months as far as growth of shows?
The growth has been anywhere from, is 1,500 to 3,000 shows a week, as it could be as high as that.
So we should be seeing right through September going into the fall, we should see increasing numbers of new shows.
September was a huge month.
Yeah,
huge number of new shows in September.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the historical patterns, that's typically what you see. Is you see big, like July and August, people are on vacation, people are traveling, family.
Yep.
The kids are still at home from school.
Yep.
But in September, everything changes.
Yeah, there was a huge jump in September.
Right, and listenership goes up as well.
Right, as people start not being outdoors as much, for sure.
Right. As it starts getting colder in the colder climates, people start listening to more podcasts.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that, basically looking at, the number of new shows coming on, it just, the pod fade rate is incredible.
Yeah. Whose fault's that?
Well, I'm just saying if, content companies like ours we need to be focused and making sure that these content creators
don't fade
and get off the ground, right? And get going
and launch correctly, get off the ground, and have understand the medium enough to develop something that's sustainable, that people can not get in a situation where they start something that overwhelms them. And they can't keep it up, or it doesn't bring in results. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we've been realizing for a long time is our content growth outpacing the audience growth. And if we're doing that, then these are the kind of things that you see starting to happen.
We had a discussion internally, and I've got a big band of light coming in the window here. That's
I see that
getting through. At
least it's not on your forehead.
Yeah, not yet. We'll see. I had a discussion with the team. Because we're, how do I say this correctly? we're seeing a high number of pod-fated shows getting added to the directory. And I'm like, well, why don't we set a minimum? Well, why don't we say you have to have 7 episodes before you can be listed? And then we got to thinking, oh, that's unfair.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think shows that maybe have only 1 or 2, maybe.
Yeah.
Might want to lock out.
So, we're going to have to look at that. Make a determination factor because, at this point, we've just been adding everybody. 1 episode you're in. But some of those.
It doesn't take up that much storage to store some metadata.
No. But some of those shows are test. This is a test. Does this work? Is this a test? Oh, I published my first podcast.
Yeah.
Literally. That's what some of these shows that are testing and then quitting, and yet they've been submitted to Apple. Yeah.
Right. And that's what you get when you create a publishing platform that is, I think to say it, is too easy to publish content on. That's the trade-off. I think we all strive for, and I know we do at Spreaker, we strive for trying to make publishing as easy as possible, but there's a downside to making it too easy.
And it's a disservice to the listeners, too. Yeah. So we're going to have to do something. Maybe we will suppress show listings or something. I've really got to come up with a solution, because if someone comes to my directory and searches for, again, here's the knitting podcast, and if there's 25 knitting shows and 5 of them are new, but they've got a test. This is a test episode.
Doesn't help the medium.
It doesn't help. People are like, what is this crap?
Yeah, right.
And Apple's going to have the same situation. They're going to have a bunch of crap.
So is Spotify. Spotify, with their new API, they're going to get pushed a bunch of stuff unless they're doing some filtering on their end, which I'm not sure they are.
But, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. So, other, which means all these other apps are going to have the problem too.
Right.
So everybody's going to have this issue.
Rob, I'm going to switch to you for a second. I'm going to adjust this blind. So I'm going to be off the headset for 30 seconds.
Okay. All right. But it's interesting, the blending of content and how so many new companies are forming. And when I was down in San Francisco over the last couple days, just the enthusiasm from the venture capital community towards this medium. But there's still a little bit of caution that people have towards podcasting. Is it a real business? Is it something that's growing fast enough? I think that was the other concern that I keep hearing a lot, is that this medium isn't growing fast enough. And
from a listener perspective?
Yeah, I mean, and just from a business perspective too, the advertising side, the whole thing is just not growing fast enough to keep VCs happy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's one of the challenges. But I think those that are worried about that tend to somewhat be, misaligned with the medium and kind of misunderstanding what the history of the medium is too.
Hey, Podvader says in the chat room, I'm still available as a free agent. And Gary Leland has said, hey guys, and he did a laugh out loud. And then, yeah. So I need to watch the chat a little closer. Sorry guys, we missed some of your comments.
Yeah.
I just, it is from a timing perspective in the space, we're going to have to look at what we're going to do to try to make the experience better from the listeners at Blueberry. We are from our directory standpoint. Mm-hmm. But it's, I've got other stuff to do,
right.
And I don't necessarily want to have to spend time weeding out junk.
Yeah, I mean, but Todd, this has been a concern from the very early days of the medium. I know when I was running the Zoom podcasting platform, it was always a concern even back then, at what point do you take down a show, right? I mean, is it because it's old, or is it because it stopped producing episodes? Mm-hmm. Is it, what's the criteria for inclusion? Is it the evergreenness of it? I don't think anybody's really defined that, and I think everybody just defaults to the choice of, don't touch it.
Right.
Just let it be, because it doesn't cost very much to have it there. So,
Yep.
But is it kind of diluting the experience of new podcast listeners coming into the medium, being able to find stuff that's good, right?
Well,
when you don't,
and a lot of these new podcasters are not paying attention to the names of their show, and they are making names of their show that are exactly the same as other shows.
Right.
And then with now Google getting in the game, you may end up with 2 listings in a Google search. So the value of people working on making sure that their SEO for their websites is good is going to become critical when you're competing with named or closely named shows.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually become already more important because of this influx of test. This is a test. I'm testing my new podcast.
Right. It's just cluttering the discovery experience as well.
Because that stuff would have never made it to Apple before. It would have never have been submitted, because the person would have done a test and, oh, that was fun. And then I'm going to do a podcast next week. And 2 years later, the individual still hasn't done a show, but yet in the instance of what we're really referring to here, folks, is Anchor auto-submitting shows. And then this junk ends up in Apple Podcast, and Apple doesn't remove anything.
Now, I did hear, Todd, that Anchor may have stopped doing that here recently.
Okay. I don't think so.
That's not what you're hearing?
It doesn't appear to be apparent to me that is the case. Someone else, I'm going to need some serious third-party verification on that.
Okay.
And we're going to have to start in it's, we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, if we can,
if
find that out.
If that's the case, then it's good. Then that will.
Because I had gotten the impression from Apple that they were going to shut it down. So
if they did, I'm thrilled. It'll help. But we've already got 6-7 months of damage here.
Right. So
in my opinion.
Yeah. So I was looking at an article that was in CNBC here recently, talking about how podcast brands are set to double their ad spend this in the next 18 months.
Okay.
Going from what they estimate in 2017 of $314 million to $659 million in 2020.
That'll start filling some back catalog if that actually happens.
Right. And they said here it's baked in ads. So is the key driver of that.
Okay.
I think it's interesting. They mentioned in the article the Daily podcast, I guess, which is a show out of out of the New York Times?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it is? Yeah. Is asking $290,000 per month for sponsorship of that show.
How much?
$290,000 per month to sponsor the Daily on the New York Times. It's a daily podcast.
$290,000. All right.
$290,000 a month. So
let's do the math.
So if you think about, how many episodes that they do, they probably typically do 20 episodes a month. So you split that across 20 episodes a month.
Yeah.
That's like what, $10,000 an episode?
14.5K
per episode.
Yeah. So let's divide that by a standard. Well, I should have done the whole thing here. Hang on. I did it the wrong way. Oh, that was stupid. Come on. I'm trying to come up with their audience size.
Oh, you're backing
yeah, I'm backing it in. So that tells me that they have 725,000 people per episode listen to that show. Roughly daily. Is that possible? 725,000 people are listening to the daily, considering the largest podcast that I know of is doing about 500,000.
And I believe the New York Times, I think they're currently hosting on Panoply, I believe.
So I just use 20 as the number, $20 CPM. That would be $725,000, 725,000 listens per episode.
I would think that they're getting more than 20.
Well, okay, so
would you think like maybe 25 might be a more appropriate number for them?
Okay, well, still 500,000 listeners, between 500,000 and 725,000.
Yeah.
And who's the advertisers on their show now?
It doesn't list that in the article.
Because I can tell you what they're being paid.
You're getting an inside glimpse of the behind the scenes of what goes on here in this space around the advertising business. Everybody knows what everybody's doing. Because you can back into the same numbers because we're all dealing with the same people.
Right. You know, and they generally have the same RFPs. Matter of fact, sometimes I get RFPs with other companies' names on them, you know, so.
because the buyers forget to take it off.
Right. They forget to swap it, you know. And I do the same thing too. I send emails sometimes with stuff on. I'm like, crap, I included the other person I was talking to's name as well.
Todd, you're not supposed to admit to any of that.
Oh man,
you get in trouble for that.
Yeah. So Gary says, years and years ago, we removed all the dead podcasts that had less than 5 episodes. That was on Podcast Pickle.
Right.
Yeah. Tim says less than 3 episodes and haven't published in 6 months get delisted. Where's that at, Tim? Less than 3 episodes and haven't published in 6 months get delisted. Where?
Yeah, I think that's a good number. I think 2 or 3 it should be that limit. I think once you get beyond about 3, then maybe there's some value left in that show, depending on what it is. Now, granted, how deep do you get in evaluating it based on the content?
Yeah.
Is there the potential of a podcast having some value with 3 episodes?
Usually not.
I don't know. You know, probably not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the chat room's going crazy, and I haven't been watching it.
Well, we've been cracking the egg open on this industry a little bit on the show today. So, yeah.
But I'm still not seeing as much money trickle down into smaller shows than, you know, there's still a huge disparity. You know, it's huge disparity out there. Oh, Tim is saying that's my proposal. Oh, that was.
That's your proposal. It's not a bad proposal.
Yeah,
I think I like it.
Well, one thing's for sure: the directory would go from like 558 to like 120.
Yeah, right.
It would definitely save.
Since we love high numbers,
yeah,
right?
I
don't think you want to do that.
We would definitely save on some resources in pulling feeds.
Right.
And actually,
you're probably not pinging those feeds much anymore anyway.
We have
some pattern of updates.
Yeah, if we've seen a show has went 30 days without pulling or without updating, we changed the repetition rate on that show. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So it just turns into archived content at that point.
Right. But, maybe that's what we do is we flag it as archived, or dead. And we put a big banner on it, pod faded or something.
Put a big D on the page.
Yeah, or big X, through the...
Yeah.
But then again, I've seen people come back after a year, so...
Well, if the feed is maintained and it pops up a new episode, then you just have to have some sort of intelligence in the back end to somehow
say,
still look at headers on a regular basis.
Right. But, yeah, don't necessarily pull the whole thing.
Right.
All right.
So
wow, we made
it. We did. 90 minutes. Again.
I think we were stretching a little bit, but yeah, we did.
We just lots of ums and ahs. It always gets us to the finish line.
It does. And then we just had an increase in the number of people watching live too. Tim says,
Well,
personally, I would love it if individual apps would let me search based on date of last episode. Wow, that's probably true. It's probably a good search algorithm.
yeah, it's a good idea, actually. I don't think anybody's doing that, though.
No, I don't think so either. But, I know that people that set up MyCast over at Blueberry subscribe to, a number of shows, and then we just aggregate all of them together in a special feed that they get, and they get newest to oldest. So it might be a way to, if you want to keep an eye on a show that you're interested in, see if it pops back up without being directly subscribed to it, you can do so via the MyCast feed. But
now I did actually see one other thing that was hitting me over the head at TechCrunch down in San Francisco this week was just the plethora of startups and new companies that are like out there hammering on transcription services. It's getting overwhelming now, right? How many transcription services are? And I had to really challenge one of these guys down there. It's like, well, what's the use case for this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Can you clearly define to me? Sure, it's great to get transcription services of a podcast, but what's the use case? How's a podcaster going to use this stuff? Are you just going to cut and paste it into your show notes? Right. Are you going to put it on your website? You're going to have it in by subject, split out by subject? And how's that going to benefit you? Because I really challenged the guy's assumption. He said, well, it's all food for Google. And I go,
no.
You really don't want to feed them Google that much text. It's not going to help you.
Right.
So that can't be the reason. Somehow you need to take that transcription and be able to summarize it down, maybe apply some AI technology to it to maybe parse out subjects and link to the audio, and then maybe have the text related to it in pieces, right?
Yep.
And I tried to show him our capability of like on our speaker platform where we have chapters. So there may be some mapping that can happen between chapters, topics, right? If the transcription service can be smart enough to detect a change in topics or a change in subjects, it's like the transition that we just did from talking about the prior topic that we were talking about, and now I'm talking about transcription service, to be able to segment that out somehow, push that to Google somehow as a
contextual piece
link, right? It's a contextual piece that has its own title, its own subject matter, and its own segment from the audio. Then there's probably some value there, kind of like what the service. I'm drawing a blank on the name of it right now because it's dead now. But it's the one that where you could snip out pieces of your show and promote those. I think that there's Clamor, right?
Right, which is gone.
Right, which is gone. They didn't make it either.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's anyway, another part for those transcription services. How do they monetize?
Right. What's the revenue model? I know the one I like right now is Audio Burst.
Me too.
And they're completely free. I'm not sure what their business models. I know Google has announced that they're going to get big time into transcriptions, but maybe that's more interesting because if Google's going to do it, they're obviously going to do their algorithm right to take advantage of that, which isn't going to penalize you like it would on a normal basis. I
think AudioBurst has a good model. I know what their model is. I won't speak for them. I'm sure they're going to do okay with this. But they're also putting some, and I don't like using AI because that's really not. They put some good programming behind their transcription. So
it's like a machine learning thing more than anything else. I think it's a way to understand context, which is so important to these search engines when you think about it. Context is the key.
It is.
And if you don't have context to information, then it has no meaning to a user. So it's just words at that point. So
anyway, let's wrap this up. Okay. Rob, I think I'm going to be. I don't think I'm traveling anytime soon. So I was looking at maybe doing a trip to Columbus, but I forgot that the International Podcast Day was September 30th, and I have podcast awards to do on the September 30th. So going that weekend to Columbus doesn't work. I have to be here. I may be gone. The
the last week before the end of the month. Here, let me look at what the dates are. So I may be gone the 22nd.
Okay. Well, we can.
So, but we'll see. We'll see on that.
All right, everybody. We're gonna get off here. Thanks for listening. I know we've been all over the place today. Kind of, we were out of the seat for 2 weeks, so even us are rusty. So we'll be back next Saturday with another new media show. But definitely get subscribed. I think I actually had one email from someone said, "Hey, thank God you guys put a PayPal on your website because now I can donate to your show."
I did actually see that.
Yeah, so that had come in. So did I put the PayPal in, or did I put the PayPal? Yeah, I put a link actually in the in the show notes. So if you want to throw Rob and I a few nickels, then feel free.
You can throw a dime if you want.
Yeah, a dime would be fine. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Or and if you really want to be great, we both can use new cars. So
or at least a quarter.
Because if you think about it, Rob, the way I look at this is I've been talking about maybe doing some additional consulting, and I thought, man, I spend an hour and a half with Rob every week. I'm giving it away for free.
I know.
So the way I look at it this show is that you're getting an hour and a half of consulting every week, and
you're a fly on the wall is what you are. Yeah.
So hopefully we've given you some consulting value from the show. And,
right. Hopefully we're driving some value.
And some of these folks charge $9,999.99 for an hour of consulting. So
that's right, and they won't take 98 cents. It has to be 99 cents.
Hey, you guys think I'm joking? That's the truth. There are some people out there that are charging $10,000 for an hour. So Rob and I's time's at least worth $200 a week. At least. So.
So Todd, I saw that you were a guest on Ed's Radio Inc.
Yeah, we did that show twice.
Podcast dummies. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So and I hope it turned out okay. I was flat out beat. I was exhausted that day. So I hope I made sense.
So Radio Inc. is making some aggressive moves to around content in the podcasting space. So it's interesting. And Rob Walsh was on the show this past week.
Yeah, I can't say what's coming, but I'm a privy. Yes, they're going to be very aggressive.
Yeah, I'm also talking about the same thing.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll let Radio Inc. make their own announcement. But keep an eye on them, folks, for sure. So we'll see what happens. All right, everybody. Thanks. I'm Todd at blueberry.com or at Geek News on Twitter.
Rob at Spreaker.com is a great place to reach me. You can go to robgreenlee.com. That's with 2 E's. And my Twitter account's a great place to reach out to me, too, at Rob Greenlee with 2 E's.
Robert, are you back to using Spreaker.com instead of voxnest.com?
Well, most of my effort is around Spreaker. So, Voxnest is a parent company, and we've been confusing the waters a little bit between Voxnest and Spreaker, right? So I'm getting focused, Todd. Okay, so it's Rob at Spreaker.com this week, everybody. Yes, next week it'll be Rob at Voxnest.com. I've got too many email addresses. Yeah, I kind of do too, a little bit. All right, everybody, thanks for being here. We'll see you next week. Everyone, take care. Stay subscribed or subscribe. See you next time. Bye-bye.